All right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part 5 of my presentation on the flood and Noah's Ark. Now, in this one here, we're really going to look at a really interesting video clip. And I got this clip back in February 3rd, the year 2000. So this video clip is over 24 years old. And so what I did is back when VHS tapes, this is a VHS tape for those of you that don't know what a VHS tape is. That's what a VHS tape is. I still have a few that I need to get recorded onto DVDs. But what I used to do, if you'll notice here, it says Donnie's on the edge of it there. What I did is I would keep this by the VCR, and that way if something came on the news or a program or something like that that I thought I could use in the presentations, I would quickly put it in there and hit record, and I got all types of stuff. And so what I did is, through the years, I have amassed a large library of these VHS tapes, and I put them on DVDs, and because some of the information was just that good. It's timeless information, like this one here. This is one of them that you're about to see. And so, but this one came back. This one I recorded off the Travel Channel. And now you could probably watch this. I'm sure they got it on YouTube if you look hard enough. But it's called Super Volcanoes. And what they're doing is they're talking about a population bottleneck, and they're looking in our DNA. And what they've seen is that by looking in our DNA, they're able to look back, especially by looking at the mitochondrial DNA. And they're able to see that sometime in our past, guys, sometime in the history of human beings being on this planet, we almost went extinct, completely extinct. And only just a few survived that catastrophe. And we're going to see it. I'm going to let them talk about it. This is a secular program. This is not a Christian program. And I'm going to let you hear it right out of their own mouths, what they found. And then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss it, okay? Well, let's check that out real quick.
Lynn Jorda and Henry Harpending are scientists specializing in human genetics. Since the early 1990s, they have been studying mitochondrial DNA, using the information to investigate mankind's past. Most of our genetic information is stored in the nuclei of our cells, but a small, separate quantity exists in another component, the part which produces the cell's energy, the mitochondria.
Mitochondria have their own genes. It's a small number of genes, a small amount of DNA, but it's distinct from the rest of the DNA in the cell. And because of the way mitochondria are transmitted from one generation to the next, they're inherited only from the mother. So they give us a record of the maternal lineage of a population.
Mitochondrial DNA is inherited only by the mother. All mutations are passed on from mother to child, generation after generation, at a regular rate. Over time, the number of these mutations accumulate in a population.
Every event that takes place in our past, every major event, a population increase, a population decrease, or the exchange of people from one population to another, changes the composition of the mitochondrial DNA in that population. So what happens is that we have a record of our past written in our mitochondrial genes.
By knowing the rate of mutation and by a complex analysis of the distribution of these mutations, geneticists can estimate the size of populations in the past. Several years ago, they began seeing a strange pattern in their results.
We expected that we would see a pattern consistent with a relatively constant population size. Instead, we saw something that departed dramatically from that expectation. We saw a pattern much more consistent with a dramatic reduction in population size at some point in our past.
This confirmed what other geneticists have noticed. Given the length of time humans have existed, there should be a wide range of genetic variation. Yet DNA from people throughout the world is surprisingly similar. What could have caused this? The answer is a dramatic reduction of the population sometime in the past. A bottleneck.
If we imagine the population diagrammed like this, in the distant past, back here, we had a large population, then a bottleneck looking like this, and then a subsequent enlargement of population size again. So we would have families of people in the distant past with a significant amount of genetic diversity. But when the bottleneck occurs, when there's a reduction in population size, perhaps only a few of those families would survive the bottleneck. We have a dramatic reduction in genetic diversity during this time when the population is very small. And then after the bottleneck, the people who we would see today would be descendants only of those who survived, so they're going to be genetically much more similar to one another, reducing the amount of genetic variation.
Human DNA is so similar, the scientists concluded the population reduction had been catastrophic.
It seems so incredible. You know, the idea that all of us, you know, there's 6 billion people on Earth, and what the data were telling us was that our species was reduced to, a few thousand. Suddenly, it hit us. We had something to say about human history.
Our population may have been in such a precarious position that only a few thousand of us may have been alive on the whole face of the earth at one point in time, that we almost went extinct, that some event was so catastrophic as to nearly cause our species to cease to exist completely.
It is an astonishing concept, but the key was if, when, and why it happened. Because mitochondrial DNA mutates at an average rate, these scientists believe, controversially, that they can narrow in on the date of the bottleneck.
Mutations in the mitochondria take place with clock-like regularity. So the number of mutations give us a clock, essentially, that we can use to approximately date the major event. In the case of a population bottleneck, we think that this would have occurred roughly 70 to 80,000 years ago, give or take some number of thousands of years. So then the real question is, what could have caused such a reduction, an extreme reduction in the human population, down to as few as 5,000 or 10,000 individuals?
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. You'll have to forgive me for the quality of the video. This was over 24 years ago when I recorded this off of the television with a VHS cassette tape. And so, and then I put it on to a DVD, and then here it is for your perusal. And so now, this is a secular view on this. So they're putting the long geologic ages into this. And so if you notice some of the things they were saying, some of the years, some of the timelines they were given, 70 to 80,000 years ago was when what they thought the catastrophic event. If you remember our definitions we were going through, you know what the word catastrophic is. And so they mentioned that, the catastrophic event being 70 to 80,000 years. And then he says, give or take a number of thousands of years ago. Oh, I can give you a better timeline on that one. But let's look at some of the things that they said. He said right here, a dramatic reduction in population size at some point in our past. He says, Henry Harpening says, it seems so incredible, the idea that all of us, there's 6 billion people on Earth, and what the data were telling us was that our species, was reduced to a few thousand. Suddenly it hit us. We had something to say about human history. And again, going back to this guy, he again says, our population may have been in such a precarious position that only a few thousand of us may have been alive on the whole face of the earth. Now, he did give a number, if I remember correctly, 5,000 to 7,000 people, but I'd bring it more down to about 8 people. But he says that we almost went extinct, that some event was so catastrophic as to nearly cause our species to cease to exist completely. Now, notice that species. Again, we're talking secular. So these are secular terminology, terms that you're going to see. Now, as far as, that's looking at it at a secular worldview. Now, looking at it at the biblical worldview, if you notice the chart here, there's only 2 ways, guys. These guys are looking at it from a secular worldview. I think they did outstanding research, don't get me wrong. And then again, you can learn a lot of stuff from secular programs and books and articles and stuff like that, but they come to the wrong conclusion. It's how you're viewing that information that they're gathering. The biblical worldview, I clearly see a flood 4,400 years ago. That's when the catastrophic event happened, and about 8 people survived it, and that's the reason you're not going to get such a huge diversity in genetic information. It's just as simple as that. Now, we're going to come back to that DNA and mutations and what it would be like if we were around for hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. What we would actually be like, what would be what we would see in our DNA. And so I don't want to get on that. I'm so tempted to, so I'm going to withhold that. But I say the catastrophic event happened around 4,400 years ago. They have the data. They show the data. They see in our DNA that something did happen, but it's how you view, how you're viewing the world. And so again, now it's so interesting, guys, that this is what gets me is you can have all this good information and people still won't believe. Again, we go back to the scripture here. And if you notice in 2 Peter, if you noticed in verse 5 there, it says they are willingly ignorant. They willingly are ignorant. They choose to believe. They choose not to believe, excuse me. So these guys, sometimes I would love to have been right there with them. I really wonder, when the doors were closed and no cameras were on them, if one of them didn't look at the other one and think, I wonder if this was Noah's flood. So the biblical flood in the Bible, the biblical account of the flood. And so, again, it just absolutely drops my jaw, the information that's here, and people still choose to say, no, I don't believe it happened. And so we're going to stop right there. When we come back, we're going to continue on with some really cool evidence that's out here, guys. And again, I want this information to help you guys. I want to help you guys. And so for my Bible believers out there, this is encouragement. This is tools and information that you can use to answer other people. And so, but at any rate, guys, I hope you have a great day. I hope the Lord blesses you real good. I love you, and y'all take care. Bye-bye.